On today's podcast, I'm joined by preeminent situational awareness and sudden violence expert Tony Blauer. We're going to be going through his system that allows you to improve your situational awareness and the decisions you make when you're confronted by sudden violence. I'm going to put an infographic up, and I'm also going to put a link to it down below in the description. You may want to go and download that infographic before you watch the balance of this video, because the video explains how we got to this infographic, how we got to the flow chart of the decisions, the stimuli, input, whatever you want to call it, and how that accelerates or improves your ability to be situationally aware and manage sudden violence when it happens and protect yourself. Good to see you again, Tony.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Doing good. I appreciate you coming back. We've had a bunch of polls that we've run with our audience, and one thing in particular keeps coming in at the top of their list, and that's being situationally aware, looking for tips, tangible things that they can do to increase their situational awareness. And a comment that we routinely hear is people say, well, I went and watched this video, not necessarily one of ours, and the guy kept saying, have your head on a swivel, but I don't know what that means, or I don't know how to get myself to that level of awareness. So that's why we asked you to come back on the podcast, because this is in your wheelhouse. So what are some tangible things that our viewers can do to level up their situational awareness game?
Sure. It's a great question, and it's a real problem. We have a maxim that goes, no awareness, no chance. No awareness, no chance, right? So if you don't see it coming, you're going to get hit, whatever it is. And remember, like, situational awareness applies to relationships, finances, and violence. A lot of people, like on your show, they're probably thinking in terms of managing violence. But if your relationship goes sideways, a year later, you're like, oh, I see what happened there. You don't lose your money overnight unless it's a stock market crash. But all of this stuff requires kind of tracking the inputs and the stimuli that give us this information. And that's what experts mean by head on a swivel. But I just wanted to share that kind of like metaphysical, this language applies to everything.
And you make an interesting point that nobody else has raised, in that our discussion on situational awareness on survival dispatch has really been around the shit's hitting the fan, and you hopefully saw it coming in advance because you were aware. It didn't completely catch you by surprise, but I hadn't really thought in terms of being aware of your surroundings at all time. Relationships, kind of sales 101 thing, right? When you're trying to sell something to somebody, if their body language goes like this, you need to be aware of that, because whatever you're saying is not resonating. But if they sit like this, clearly what you're saying is resonating. So that's good. You balanced the conversation. You brought it back.
Yeah.
Awareness is all the time.
So everything in our system is holistic and should apply to everything if it can. And I'm going to share what we call the 4 stages to action. At the end of the day, everyone needs to take action. If you want to date somebody, you need to have the courage to take action. If you want to divorce somebody, you need to have the courage to take action. If you want to start your own business, you need to have the courage to take action. If you want to quit a job, you need to have the courage to take action. If you see something wrong, you want the courage to take action. And sometimes in a violent encounter, of course, we know there's get the hell out of there, there's barricade, there's maybe charge the threat. All 3 choices, believe it or not, require the courage to take action. When you look at a very specific violent encounter, and you could look at any recent active shooter event, sudden violence, there are people standing around filming. There are people standing around with deer in the headlights. There are people running. And if you look at the people running, they're not running tactically, and it has nothing to do with their physical fitness. They're running scared. They don't know where they're going or what they're doing. These 4 stages, I'll name them right now. Number 1, you need to have a functional situational awareness program. What does that mean? That means it can't be convoluted. It can't be highfalutin, meaning it's got to be something that you can process reasonably easily and for you based on where you are. I think sometimes some experts make things so scary and so specific that you're like, I don't even want to go out. How am I going to remember all the, I got to sit here, I got to look this, I got to do that. You know what? I'm just door dashing and I'm never leaving my house, right? And that's not what we don't want to do. We want to live. So I always talk about situational awareness as a conscious cognitive skill. So whatever I need to be aware of, I need to first have studied that. And there's, again, a lot of the experts that you've had on your shows have wonderful tips and insights. The intellectual capital of them is insane, right? The wealth of their experience. So everyone should listen and learn those tips, but then go out and enjoy yourself. And what I mean by this is this. I always share this. Every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before their attack. I'll say that again. Everyone listen to this. I've been studying violence, fear, and aggression for 40 plus years. Every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the attack. That means our survival radar sent a message. Now, how did those same people get attacked if they had the radar blip going, there's something wrong with this guy, or there's somebody following me, or there's something in the house they didn't have the courage to act on the information. And this can be chalked up to, I mean, a number of things, but mostly cognitive dissonance. Most good people don't want bad things to happen. So if I say to you, Chris, I got bad news. I think a good friend of yours is stealing from the company. You're not going to go, you know what, I think you're right. You're going to go, that's bullshit. That's impossible. I've known this guy forever. Your brain first fixes it. Most violent attacks, of course, there are anomalies like active shooters, but most violent attacks are committed by people in our circle of trust, somebody who knows your routine. The other day, I'll tell you this, I had a pool attendant come into my backyard and make it through 2 gates before my dogs freaked out. He went to the wrong house. He was replacing somebody. I hear the dogs going crazy. I come out, I see this guy. I don't grab my gun because the dogs are going crazy. I walk out and over the fence, I go, hey, can I help you? He says, I'm here to replace so-and-so. And I'm going, well, didn't he tell you about the dogs? And he's like, no. And then I realized the name he said isn't even the guy that attends our backyard. And I want everyone to listen to this. Like, I'm a situational awareness self-defense expert. And had that been a setup, I was like so vulnerable right there, because in the moment takes us over. Unless I hired you, Chris, hey, I need you with your M4 to stand in my backyard and nobody gets through unless their name's on the list. Then you're like, dude, what's your name? Get back. So unless somebody's your bodyguard, but all of us, we're human. And so I always say the 4 stages to taking action are, I need to have a functional situational awareness system. The most important thing next are these next 2 stages. I need to recognize what my survival system's telling me, even if it's a false read, even if I need to check it out and I go, holy shit, I thought that was real. Turns out it wasn't. So we will get a fear spike when we perceive danger. So stage 2 in these steps to take action during a dangerous, violent encounter is recognizing the fear spike. That's the body, the central nervous system saying something's wrong. And I want everyone to tie this to every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling. That's the central nervous system, instincts and intuition saying there's something off here. At that moment, catch yourself trying to say it's okay. It must be firecrackers. It's okay. That wouldn't happen in this nice neighborhood. It's okay. They wouldn't do that. So the next stage is fear management. So it goes situational awareness, fear spike, fear management. I need to manage the fear. And then the last stage is functional movement. And why I don't say sweep the leg or draw the gun or barricade is I wanted to create a system that everybody could use very easily, where their instincts, their intuition, and their intelligence helps them create the solution. So this is the same 4 stages that you would need to save your property or your family in a fire. This is the same. Go ahead.
Well, recap it again for me. I'm just making notes, so I've got something to look at here, and I don't have the advantage of our viewers will be able to pause, rewind, all that kind of stuff. So the 4 components are...
So it's situational awareness, fear spike, fear management, functional movement.
You want premium ad-free content? Duh. Content that's not censored by big tech, of course. But with SD Insider, you can get behind the scenes and a whole lot more. Link in the description.
For posterity's sake, people go and watch videos, an expert says, have your head on a swivel. invariably you read the comments and people are like, I didn't get anything from this. I don't know how to
Yeah.
improve my situational awareness. So let's just talk step number one and dive into each of these 4 steps.
Yeah.
How
I'm
does
ready to go.
one
I got it.
acquire a functional situational awareness system? How do you get to that point? I know how I got there.
Yeah.
I got assaulted. I got hit over the head with pool cues and
one way.
bar stools. So it forced me to become aware. But how do you do it without getting beat up in the first place?
To develop better and more effective situational awareness, first of all, you have to identify the scenario. We talked at the beginning of the show how this is holistic and can apply to anything else. If I were applying this model to business, I would talk to business people every business person has been betrayed and screwed in a deal. And I go, how does that happen? If I say to somebody, how have you been attacked in the street? There's like 3 or 4 classic ways to be attacked: sucker punch, headbutt, hit over the head with a stool. First of all, you want to have like a picture of what the aggression would look like. That helps you go, oh, that's the picture. But the real, and this is a little maybe metaphysical and not meant to be, it's what we call the 3 I's: instincts, intuition, intelligence. The way you improve your situational awareness is to specifically reconnect to your instincts, intuition, and intelligence, recognizing that every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling. So if you've got a bad feeling about an employee, a date, a person, someone who works for you, someone on the street, your instincts and intuition are telling you something's wrong here. Don't use the whole, like, I want the world to be nice, the cognitive dissonance to go, it's okay. Trust the behavioral radar blip. You know what I mean by that? It's like that. It's my radar system said something's off here. We have a model. We tell people, you need to choose safety. This is the most important advice I can give people. And we call it the choose safety model. The decision to choose safety when danger is imminent will save you 99% of the time. The decision to choose safety when danger is imminent, it's actually, my team and I redefined self-defense. And that's our official definition of self-defense, is I promise to myself and my family that I will choose safety when danger is imminent. When someone says to me, Tony, in your system, what is left of bang? What does head on a swivel mean? What I'm looking for is the bad feeling, because the speed of intuition might be, and this isn't true, might be the same as the speed of sound and the speed of light. I walk by something and I go, something's off there, but it wasn't something tangible. I will always go, what was that? And check it out. I don't want to find out after that I ignored it and then I got sucker punched or had my pocket picked or came back and my house was broken into.
You got my attention here with this situational awareness system. I completely understand what you're saying with instincts and intuition and trusting that stuff. But when you said intelligence,
yes,
what just dawned on me is that the tips that people have given our audience, including myself, kind of fall into that intelligence piece. In other words, if you're in public and you're in a restaurant, the intelligent thing to do is to sit with your back against the wall so you can observe everything, right? Intelligence. The intelligence would be somebody, I can't remember who it was, it may have even been you for that matter, that said when you're walking down the street and you see something ahead of you, let's say a gang, then the intelligent thing to do would be to go to the other side of the street and not brush up close to them. All I'm getting at here is there's a major distinction between what our experts focus on versus your system. And really what I'm trying to draw the distinction for our audiences here, all the tips that we've come up with. So I've got a whole list of them in front of me, right? Constantly scan your area, lay off the weapons of mass distraction, telephones, that sort of stuff. That's all part of the intelligence piece, and which is happening after your instincts and intuition are going off, correct?
Hopefully. And this is fascinating. So remember, our system is based on central nervous system research and the central nervous system, which means the human weapon system is this organic survival machine that has all this stuff built into it. And When's the last time, other than our conversations, where somebody said, we need to reconnect to our intuition and our instincts as part of our day-to-day survival practices? People don't talk about it. So
the only person who's made a comment even remotely along those lines is our mutual friend, Mike Sterling. And the context that Mike mentioned this in is he said, we're the only animals on the face of the earth that will ignore their intuition, that will ignore their instincts.
Yeah, you're in the wild kingdom, and all of a sudden it gets a little quiet. All of a sudden you're like, boom, you're bolting.
He was saying something along the lines, I can't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of a rabbit sees a snake and it instinctively knows that it's in danger.
Right.
And it's off. He's the only one who's kind of touched on that, which is actually pretty impressive. I haven't heard anybody else really talk instincts and intuition, although we have mentioned things like the TV show when we had lunch together that my wife mentioned to you, the I Survived. Yeah. Everybody said the same thing you just said. Something didn't feel right.
This is the thing, is what we want to do is we want to educate our families and our kids. And this is the whole thing, is to trust instincts and intuition. And when you trust instinct and intuition, what you'll do is intelligent. And that's where I got the three of them, right? And that's the big connection. When you ignore instinct, because listen to this. Have you ever been betrayed in business?
Yeah.
You're a smart guy. How's that possible? Have you ever been screwed over in a relationship?
Yep.
How's that possible? But after the dust settles, we all say, and the same thing for me, I got a bunch of yeses too, relationship, business, and I teach this stuff. And after I'm going like this, I go, oh my God, I cannot believe that pre-contact cue. Why did I not act on it? Because of cognitive dissonance. I got screwed over in a business deal, lost a $12 million company overnight. Actually, I am exaggerating, over 2 nights, from Friday to Monday. Dissolved it on a Monday. I knew something was wrong for months, but cognitive dissonance overrode my intuition. I said, there's no way this guy would do this. I hired him out of Harvard. I paid for his education. He wouldn't do this to me. I didn't want to believe it. When I realized, holy shit was happening, my nervous system changed, and I realized I was now in the fight of my life in a business scenario. And now it was all fear management. How am I going to take this? How am I going to take care of it? How am I going to manage all this? And it was managing the fear and getting it together. But had I trusted my instincts and intuition, that wouldn't have happened. And I didn't. And which is why I can emphatically say, hey, trust that. Because even if I come up and I say, this looks really bad, I need clarity on this, let's get totally transparent, and it turns out that I was paranoid, I'm still safe. And then it's like, maybe an awkward moment, I go, hey, I'm really sorry. When it comes to violence, though, we're not going to have that conversation. We always tell our students, trust your instincts, trust your intuition. If you get a bad feeling, choose safety. We make them write this down and memorize it. The decision to choose safety when danger is imminent. That's our definition of self-defense. If you Google the definition of most self-defense programs, Merriam-Webster, it'll say the physical act of protecting your property or your life. It skips situational awareness completely, Chris. If you get a bad feeling about something, ask yourself right then and there, what is the safest thing I could do? Because it might be to hit that exit, and it might be to barricade, or it might be to charge the threat. By keeping it as choose safety, I'm not locking somebody into fixating on a move, a hypothetical, theoretical move they learned in a class 6 months ago or 6 years ago. Sweep the leg, do this Jackie Chan move or whatever. It's what is the safest thing you could do? And that changes if you're alone, that changes if with your family, it changes if you're carrying, it changes if you're not carrying. It changes on what the scenario is. So the program that we created, the 4 stages to action in any dangerous encounter, business, relationship, violence, is I need to be aware something's happening. The system that will alert me isn't where I was sitting. That might be a bonus. The system that will alert me is going to be my intuition and instinct, our survival system that's kept us alive, right? There's no Tyrannosaurus Rex on this call. There's no dinosaur on this call listening. They're extinct, but humans are still here because of instincts and intuition. We need to fight now. We need to move. We need to go. So we're using an old survival system in our DNA to give us the first advantage. And people aren't taught that. We've been domesticated, bro. We think the cavalry's going to rush in. We've outsourced our safety. Hey, 911, yeah, there's somebody outside my house. And people need to realize they're the first responder in their fight. A maximum, like, I said that 10 years ago.
So I'm trying to break this down into simple stuff that I can understand and that we can pass on to the audience.
I'm Jason Salyer with Survival Dispatch. As a Survival Dispatch insider, you'll be able to gain the knowledge, the skills, and equipment necessary to protect your family when it really, really matters. They'll provide crucial information on such things as stockpiling food, medical necessities, communication plans. You will receive specific actionable plans. Visit survivaldispatch.com to get started.
A good example, I think something that you covered one of our previous conversations, many conversations, was the girl who ran into those guys at the gas station because she wasn't paying attention. If she had been paying attention, she probably would have never stopped at the gas station,
right,
which was in the wrong part of town. So if I'm connecting the dots properly here, if your instincts and intuition tells you this looks dangerous, then the intelligent decision is to get out of Dodge, right?
Safety. Yeah. It's really Ernie and Bert from Sesame Street simple. It's like, hey, I need gas. Nope. What's the safest thing I could do right now? And when you ask yourself that question, I need to choose safety. The safest thing would have been, before I hit the road to drive an hour to my house on a road trip, I check my gas tank while I'm in a crowded area or amongst friends. The safest thing might be, hey, Chris, this is kind of a creepy area. Will you go to the gas station with me and then I'll drive you back to your car? The safest thing starts way back. That's the no awareness, no chance thing.
It's not a simple subject. There's a lot of complex pieces to it. I don't even know if there's an answer to this question or not, but I'm going to ask it.
Yep.
How do you instill intelligence in people? A lot of people are oblivious to what's going on around them.
Yeah.
So therefore, they can't make any intelligent decisions. I'm just thinking that somebody who pulls into the gas station, I think you mentioned this as an example, and there's bullet holes in the glass.
Right.
It's probably not the best place to stop, right? But some people they're distracted with their phones. They're distracted thinking of something else, work, whatever. How do you teach intelligence?
There's some people that just don't care. They're oblivious, right? You see this all the time, texting while they're driving. Do I do it sometimes? I might be at a light and do something really quick. Something might be urgent. I'm like, there's no cars around. I'm going to slow down. It's stupid. And we think it'll never happen to us. You can't teach that. It's a conversation you have with yourself. All we can do as an educational organization is tell people, hey, here's another way to think about situational awareness. Let's break this down. If you get a bad feeling about something, stop and lean into that bad feeling, and then ask yourself, if this bad feeling is true, what would be the safest thing I could do right now? Don't think of intelligence, Chris, and everyone listening to this, as like IQ. I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at remembering names or whatever. Intelligence in that moment is taking the instinct and intuitive feedback and just pretending it's real, and then going, what should I do right now? And you might not know, but just addressing it and contemplating it, the brain, the creative part of the brain, all of us want to survive. So it's amazing some of the stories. There was a story out of Israel during the horrific attack where terrorists broke into a home. It was an elderly couple, like grandparents. They had already sequestered their grandkids into the bomb shelter. But of course, they didn't say they were there. They hid them. The IDF had started already hitting the neighborhood coming in. And the terrorists ran into this house. And they're looking out the window, and they're all at gunpoint. And the grandmother and the grandfather sitting there, he knows they're dead. He's got no weapon. And the grandmother says to them, you need your strength to fight. I'll make you dinner. And she made them dinner. And all she was thinking during this was, if I stay alive long enough, the cavalry will rush in, which it did. the soldiers breached the house and killed those fuckers. Her decision to start talking and offer to cook and to say you need your energy to stay awake, to stay alert. That wasn't a script somebody gave her, and I didn't train her, but what she did was she chose safety and trusted her instincts and intuition. So when she went, I don't want to die, what can I say? That came to her mind. They might have said, shut the fuck up, and pistol whipped her and thrown her down. And if she wanted to live, if she chose safety, she would come up with something else. And if that didn't work, she would come up with something else. As a coach, I put out principles to people. I don't give them things to memorize. And if you put out the principle, what you do is you maybe help somebody tap into this intelligent, creative solution.
I'm looking at my notes, and my personality is such that if there's a problem I'm trying to solve or a goal I'm trying to achieve, and I go at it from this direction and I hit a brick wall, well, then I back up and I try another direction until I find some sort of solution to that problem. It's not necessarily the smartest way to do things, but as I'm looking at this, my mind goes to, how do you put a system together for this? And I know you've got a lot more on this topic, but I want to be able to look at it and say to myself, okay, if I get a bad feeling, choose safety. Okay, I get that. But when you said instincts and intuition, when you trust them, it leads to intelligent decisions.
Only if you apply the instinct and intuition, meaning you let it be part of the conversation.
I get that, and I agree. That's very logical. But I'm stuck on this part with intelligence, because I think of the questions our followers ask. They'll say, well, give me an example. And I'm trying to think of a way to structure this in such a way that somebody could commit it to memory pretty quickly and practice it and become good at it. So I get the whole thing, trust your gut feeling, choose safety. But overall, as far as making intelligent decisions is concerned, I don't know how you equip somebody for that who's not necessarily inclined in that way, and the ability to make the intelligent decisions, other than saying, giving tangible examples. If you see this, do that. If you see this, do that. I can't think of another way to teach it to people.
But you can't, because you don't know the scenario and you don't know the people. There was a wrestler that charged an active shooter in a school shooting, and he died on the way in. Took the shots, right? So he charged the threat, didn't stop the active shooter. People got away, and then the active shooter killed himself. There are people who ran away who didn't die. There's other stories of a school teacher who charged a threat, didn't get shot, took the guy down. So we should not be telling people, and this is just my personal philosophy after teaching tens of thousands of people, from tier one operators all the way down to school teachers and nurses and what have you. I never tell anyone what to do. I tell them, I'm an options facilitator. I'm going to let you know that psychological fear needs to be controlled. Physiological fear is just going to do what it's doing. Psychological fear needs to be controlled. That you will know something bad is happening because something bad is happening. So you need to manage the fear, and then you got to figure out the solution. For that wrestler, it was charged the threat. It happened to be the wrong choice. The same scenario, a school teacher and another one charged the threat. It happened to be the right choice. How do we say, and this is the answer everyone wants, if you're like inside 3 meters, you can do this, but always carry a can of WD-40. You don't know what you're going to do, what you're going to say. My family had a home invasion in 2009, 13 years ago. My wife said afterwards, she said, I can't believe how calm I was through that. I felt like the guy was not going to shoot us. And so I led him around the house. I gave him what he wanted. We talked to him. My son, fortunately, as soon as they came in the front door, called 911, and cops were there within minutes, and they fled when they heard the sirens. And it was a very scary situation for me to come home to. But I remember my wife saying, I didn't feel like they were going to kill us, even though they weren't concealing their identity. But what would have happened if her intuition said, they're not wearing masks, they're going to kill us? Would the mother bear have done something different? How do we have a conversation about that? And she'll tell you that all of the training she got from me and all of the lessons she got from me helped guide her through that. Even though there was no battle plan, there was no like, if this ever happens, do this, do that. That's what people want. I don't believe that's the only way to teach people, which is why we do stuff that's just, I don't want to say generalized, but it applies to everybody. The 4 stages that I shared with you, I've shared with tier 1 assets in every military vertical, and they've used them downrange. You need your head on a swivel, yes, but your situational awareness will be compromised in an ambush. That's why it's an ambush. Every one of them have been in ambushes. Well, if it was just as simple as head in a swivel, no one would ever get ambushed. You'd see it coming. But now they're ambushed and they're like, fuck, whoa. Now there are people that get shot and people that hit an immediate action drill and get offline. That's the difference there was the degree and quality of their fear management skills. Cops going, drop it, and they should have had their gun out already, but they're indexing their gun going, drop it. And why are they hesitating? I don't care about the politics of the narrative. They're hesitating because of the psychology of fear. So you need to manage the fear spike, and every human gets a fear spike. And now the functional movement part is the run, hide, fight, the disengage, barricade, charge the threat. That's where the training can kick in. But military, law enforcement, citizens have all been hit, stabbed, or shot because of doubt and hesitation and procrastination. Violence loves speed. The most important thing you can do in a dangerous, violent encounter is to improve your mind speed, i.e. your decision-making speed, which is what's so different about our program, which is why I always end any single talk going, if you don't manage the fear, you're not going to manage the fight the way you thought you would have.
I've got all kinds of notes here. And again, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around all of this. If we trust our instincts and intuition and then basically do something, take some sort of action, that handoff right there is where I think a lot of people get caught in condition black. So what you're describing, that accelerating your decision making, is how you make the intelligent decisions. So how do you accelerate your decision making then?
By just doing it. You accelerate decision making by studying fear. There's something called refractory delay. That's the gap time between a stimulus and response. So if I go, oh my God, it's a bad guy. Fuck, shit, shit, right? I've eaten up 4 or 5 seconds, as opposed to there's a bad guy. Holy fuck, hide, duck, barricade, improvise weapons. It would help if I thought about those things in advance. I'm sitting in my office here. People can get in here. I got a gun over here. I got scissors over here. I got the tomahawk over here. I got a knife over here. You'd like my office. I'm sure it's just like your office. I won't access any of those tools if I'm stuck in the fear loop. There's a great book called The Fog of War that talks about how soldiers in battle couldn't pull their trigger. And many of those who did shot into the ground or shot above the head of their enemy because of psychological fear. This is back like World War II era. This has been the problem since the beginning of time that nobody talks about. You make faster decisions by managing fear. In the process of managing fear, you reconnect to why you want to stay alive. This is part of the deeper conversation in our programs where we ask a question like, what could it cost you if you didn't fight back here? What could it cost you if you stand on the X? What could it cost you if you let ego or pride dictate your next strategy, right? Get the fuck out of here now. And if you can't do that, can you de-escalate like the grandmother? Can you diffuse it? No ego, no pride. Can you create conscience and accountability in the attacker so that you start to control the timeline of violence? And if that doesn't work, are you simultaneously flipping the switch going, here we go? Look, There are more people who have defended themselves through sheer will and indignation than there ever will be people who are trained and successfully defend themselves. I'll say that again. If you look at all of the attacks that have happened around the world since the beginning of time, there are more people who successfully defend themselves using just sheer will and indignation, not some martial art technique, not a graduate of some counter ambush class. They just use sheer will and indignation. That's that how dare you energy. And that's a real thing. And that's where we come to with people, because it doesn't matter your training if you're hesitating. So the secret to all this comes back to managing your fear and getting in the fight. And that's how it happens.
I'm a very systems oriented person. When I say systems, that's the combination of people and processes together so that you get predictable, repeatable results. And you keep fine tuning your systems until it's highly optimized. I may be looking at this completely wrong, but I'll tell you the way I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this in that you go somewhere in public and take an inventory of what your options are. Like you mentioned, okay, there's an improvised weapon, there's an exit there, that guy over there looks kind of shady, but basically assessing your situation, visualizing it in your head that if you had to exercise any of those options, how you would do it, so that when your instincts and intuition tell you something bad is happening, you've already visualized these responses to get past the fear loop sooner rather than later. I don't know if that makes sense or not. That's how my mind's processing it.
But that's how you improve your mind speed. Look, somebody asked me in a podcast who I thought the most dangerous knife fighter was in the world of all these masters that were teaching knife fighting. You know what my answer was, Chris?
No.
Because there's all these famous knife fighting instructors, right? You're aware of that. They said, who do you think is the most dangerous of all these knife fighting systems? I said, some guy in jail who actually murdered people with a knife.
Right.
Not some guy who hasn't. So what am I saying there, man, is this idea of you can sit there and go, that knife is an improvised weapon, that glass, that bottle's an improvised weapon, that's the escape route. If the shit hits the fan, you still need to go through the fear spike, fear management cycle to access it. Now, the person that's practiced drawing their weapon under pressure, the person that's practiced with an improvised weapon. I've done this in a restaurant where I go, that would be escape route, where I've actually gone out the back door as a training rep, where I've actually gone, let's say, into the kitchen and then had the kitchen staff go, hey, what are you doing in here? And I go, oh, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong door. Just to go in there, just to do like a pretend rep, so that my nervous system went, you could do that. There are things you can do, dress rehearsals of stuff. And there's a principle in sports psychology called metacognition, which talks about how the brain thinks about thinking. If I want to improve your mind speed, I would create a realistic and relevant scenario that challenges your decision-making on D1, D2, D3. Detect and avoid, defuse and de-escalate, and defend. I've used D1 in real life hundreds of times. I've gone into a bar on road trips. You know those movies where it's a vampire bar and at a certain time everyone's going to turn into a vampire and kill you, like in the horror movie? I've gone into bars for real. I'm on a road trip, 3,000 miles across the country, and I go into a bar and just look like food, where everyone in the bar stops and turns and looks at me at the same time like this. And I'm about to order a beer and a burger and some stuff. And I do this, Chris. And I've done this multiple times, where I say to the guy, hey, and I say it loud for everyone to hear, oh my God, I forgot my wallet in the car. I'll be right back. Will you hold my spot? And I walk out and get in my car and fuck off. Because my instincts and intuition said, this is not a place you want to hang out. You're not welcome here. Where other people, they would have not have noticed it because they're on their phone, or they would have said, that wouldn't happen here. This is like modern times. This isn't a movie. Or their ego or pride would have went, what are you looking at, man? You got a problem with me? Where even though I know how to protect myself, I said, what's the model you teach people, Blauer? What is the safest thing you could do here? If I don't get a drink right now, how long till I die? A day? If I don't eat, how long till I die? A week? So I always ask people, you're an ATM, you got out. And this is what I say to my students, like you're looking for tangible examples. I go, is that the ATM that you want to go to right now? There's no lighting here. It's creepy. This would be a place to get mugged. There's another ATM a mile from here that's inside a mall and there's people walking around. Is this the safest place to be right now? Choose safety. Is this gas station the safest place to be? Choose safety. Is this bank? Is this date? Is it whatever you put it? If you have a bad feeling about somebody, you ask yourself, what is the safest thing I could do right now? And not be embarrassed about taking those steps to make yourself safe. This isn't the same as playing it safe, which is a horrible way to live. It's about choosing safety. We had a nanny years ago come over and we were interviewing her. And at the end of the interview, Chris, my wife loves her and she's all excited. And I could see my wife's reaction. And I said to the nanny, I got one more question for you. She looks at me, she goes, yes, Mr. Blauer. And I said, but you've been doing this for several years now. Have you ever hit any of the kids that you've been in care of? Have you ever physically struck one of the kids? And she looked at me and went, oh my God, heavens, no, of course not. And I said, okay, thank you. And she leaves. And my wife goes, I can't believe you asked her that. I said, she will not answer your call. She's not coming back. She goes, what are you talking about? I go, you didn't see there was like a micro reaction when I asked her the question. And it was a behavioral tell. And sure enough, my wife said, hey, I really liked you. I'd love you to come back and meet the kids. And the woman never answered the call.
Very interesting.
What I did is I chose safety. Something in the dad in me said, ask this question. Look what happened. I know the model works everywhere. If I say to you, you got your gun out, you're standing, you have a shotgun out, you're behind your door, you're yelling, I've called the police, get away from my house. And you're following the steps. And then all of a sudden, your intuition, your instincts say, get the fuck out the back door. Or you need to get upstairs. Or shoot through the door now. That's the black box element that becomes the story after. It's when people don't trust their instincts and their intuition that things go south and sideways. That's at least been my experience.
I'm actually doing just a quick little flow chart
Okay.
because I'm doing it for my own benefit so that I know that I'm digesting it properly. And again, I'm very systems oriented. So the way I'm thinking here is I've got first and foremost is to size up the setting, assess the setting. So that could be you driving by a gas station, could be you stopping at a restaurant, could be you walking down the sidewalk. And if your instincts are tripped, then don't stop there. Get out of Dodge. If, on the other hand, if your instincts are not tripped at that particular point, it seems like it's safe to visualize what your options are. So you're sitting in the restaurant, okay, here's where my exits are. Here's where the improvised weapons are. Here's where I could potentially take cover. Play through them in your mind so that if SHTF does happen, you've already visualized it, and therefore you're speeding up the decision-making process. Instead of hitting condition black, you've already thought, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm running for that door right there. If something bad happens over at that cash register, which is probably where the robbery is going to happen, if this place gets jacked up. Am I putting this together right?
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that I tell people is this, and now we're getting into self-defense beyond situational awareness. I'm going to share my screen and show you something. So these are the 4 stages to action. The choose safety model represents the shaft of the spear. It's the thing that I jam right in.
Okay.
I need situational awareness. I'm going to get a fear spike. I need fear management. And only then will I have functional movement. If I'm hesitating because of fear, I'm not going to be as functional or as efficient as I thought. And when I'm having a fear spike, fear always creates doubt. Doubt creates hesitation. Hesitation creates procrastination. So no matter how fast you are, if you're in the fear loop, you're moving slower. And this goes for people who practice drawing from concealment and people who practice knife fighting. Everything's theoretical until it's real. And there's lots of evidence that even really good people hesitate. But what you want is that gap time to be as fast as possible. So the true safety model requires these 4 stages before I'm deploying whatever I'm deploying. Any questions about this slide?
I'm still making notes over here, but
Yep, that's fine.
that's a good slide. I like that.
Next slide. Cycle behavior. So if I go back here, so the fear spike is all about physiology and psychology and neurobiology. So I tell people, like, sudden danger gives you a fear spike, whether you're trained or untrained. I got friends that hunt terrorists and do bad things to bad people, and they will tell you before certain types of encounters, they get massive fear spikes, but they manage their fear because they know they're trained. So they box breathe, they have a mantra. It changes for each person, Chris. That's what's important. Mike Tyson used to throw up before his fights. George St. Pierre, one of the greatest MMA guys, hates fighting and manages his fear. But if you look at them at that 3% body fat jumping across the ring, if I said to you, this guy was shitting his pants before the fight, you'd go, I don't believe that. People learn to manage fear. What we've created is a system to help speed up that process. And that looks like this. So this is actually part of our No Fear program. And it's just the cycle of behavior. The scenario is I'm minding my own business. I'm having dinner with my family at a restaurant. Then there's a sudden stimulus. And all of a sudden I'm going, holy shit. I go, I know what I would do if I were alone, but I'm with my family. And now I'm worrying about my family. Oh, now I'm alone. Okay, now I can charge the threat. I can get in the gunfight. I can grab an improvised weapon, or I can sneak out the back. My system says, what is the safest thing you can do? Now, if you're an off-duty cop who's been in several altercations and is sick and tired of the bullshit that's going on and the brazen acts, that emotional narrative might influence you on moving towards the danger because you're fed up. You look at now, more and more of the general public are stopping, like shoplifters and shit like that. We're fed up. Is that the safest thing to do? Fuck no. But some people, and this is why our system is options facilitators. We're not telling people what to do. Because if I tell you, you manage your fear, what is the safest thing you could do? You might go, the safest thing I could do is ignore this, but I'm fed up and I'm doing this. My indignation and my disgust at some of the behaviors is now compelling me to move towards the danger. Does that make sense? Because there's got to be, from a professional standpoint, for you and me, we're not telling anyone what to do. And I'm not trying to be careful here. I'm being very responsible. And I want other people to be response-able, response-able. That makes you responsible. But I want people to think about the stuff. So the next block is, how do I navigate the fear loop, which is identified by the red? And then how do I get back into action? And action here, represented by the green or the yellow, is the duress path. The duress path represents the, I hope this fucking works. I'm nervous, but I'm moving. Getting off the proverbial X means get out of the fear loop. The fear loop means I'm standing here and I'm metaphorically a stationary target. I need to move under duress or in a flow state. The next stage, once I've navigated fear, is understanding the timeline of violence. And the timeline of violence looks like this: D1, and the numbers are arbitrary, where I go, D1 is like 2 minutes long, meaning I'm driving and I think I'm being followed. And then I drive into the gas station, and then the bad guy or the car I thought was following me follows me in. And I sit there for a second, and my cognitive dissonance, or I go, well, I'm carrying a knife or a gun, or they wouldn't do this in public, or I'm just imagining this, right? I get up and I get in there. Next thing I know, I am the target and I'm diffusing it. And that defuse might take 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds. But what I'm explaining here is D1 is typically a much longer phase. D2 is shorter. And then when things kick off, the fight is 10 seconds long. And you can see to the left of this where the true safety mindset kicks in. I need it to kick in during D1. And you might, for example, go, I should get out of here, but I've run out of gas because I planned poorly. I've got to get gas here, and I'm filling up my gas. And now that car I thought was following me a mile back pulls into the gas station, and holy shit, here we go. Am I engaging them with a D2? Am I jumping in the car and speeding off, even though I only got $5 in, but that'll get me far up the road? Am I running into the store and hopefully that guy's got a bulletproof glass behind him and I'm telling him, hey, we're about to get robbed, hit the panic button, right? What am I doing to draw attention to this? And then if that fight follows me in, am I prepared to engage? So this is really understanding the timeline of violence. I need to control it as best I can. And I control it by controlling myself because of fear management, and I control it by controlling the bad guy. I've been in situations where I've said to people, hey, the police have already been called. You should get out of here now. And they've gone, oh, fuck. When the police were never called, I just said it with enough commitment that they thought the police were involved, because we tell people bad guys don't want to get caught. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want things to take too long, at least most of them. And then the last part of this is a reminder to choose safety when danger is imminent. And if I go back a slide, choosing safety in D1 is different than choosing safety in D2, which is different than choosing safety in D3. That's what's fantastic about the system. You can't possibly remember. This is your task switching theory. If I say, hey, sit with your back to the wall and index your gun and get ready with the knife, well, that will prevent you from thinking about safe things to do during D1, because now you're fixating on a D3 solution. You choose safety during each stage. D1 fails, you're compelled and forced to do something in D2. D2 fails, now are you going to move preemptively, or did the bad guy sucker punch you? So that's a whole other part of our system and how fear triggers the startle response. And that's a whole other conversation that we've had already, but need to get in deeper for your audience.
I've drawn out a complete flow chart here because I'm trying to put this into layman's terms for myself. To understand it. And I think what I'll do is I'll do this flow chart. I'll send it to you. You critique it, and then we'll put it up on the screen when we publish the video. On the one hand, your system is so simple that it's elegant, but on the other hand, there's so many moving parts to it that your average person may have problems visualizing it. And I'm trying to put this into a flow chart that I can visualize. Yeah. And like I said, then it's
so simple that it's complex. Nobody believes it's this simple. This is the thing that I need you to really wrap your head around. The safest thing for a 10-year-old is not the safest thing for a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old. So, but the model still applies. Run to the teacher, run home, find a police officer. There's a story years ago in Montreal, some guy went to kidnap a kid. The two kids were walking, and some guy went and grabbed a kid, and the kid resisted, and the guy pulled, and the girl standing beside him reached out, grabbed the guy's hand, and bit his fucking hand as hard as he could. And the guy went, fuck. And the kids ran and they got away. And then it was in the news.
That's awesome.
I didn't train them, but what did they do? Situational awareness failed them. They were suddenly in a D3 situation, instincts, intuition. Bite his hand, he'll let go. Boom. It wasn't like a kung fu move,
right?
But I can explain the system. Guy with a revolver in somebody's face. Guy's got his hands up, surrender position. Give me your watch. Give me your wallet. Guy looks at him and pauses. The guy's standing here like this, and then all of a sudden he reaches out and he grabs the gun, and the guy pulls the trigger, and the hammer of the revolver hits the pinky.
Oh shit!
So the round doesn't go off, and they're wrestling over the gun, and the guy bolts and runs leaving the guy holding the gun. In the news, D1 failed, situational awareness. He's got a gun in his face. This is like why our system works. The gun's in the guy's face. He cooperates with the guy, like the police tell you, cooperate. Your property's not worth your life. Here's my watch. Here's my wallet. What made the guy grab the gun? He asked, what made you grab the gun? He said, I had a feeling the guy was going to shoot me.
Wow.
What is that? Intuition.
Yeah.
What is the safest thing you could do if you think somebody holding a revolver a foot from your face is? Well, move the gun or move your head. The guy reached out and grabbed it. As the guy pulled the trigger, fucking hammer on the finger. Again, how do you explain this? Intuition.
Right.
I know the system works, and it works for everybody. And it's that simple that people make it complicated, but they go, what if he does this? What if he does this? It doesn't fucking matter what he does. It matters what you do. not what he does. It matters what you do. People imbue people, it's a fancy word. People give people skills they haven't yet proven. You need to manage the fear to manage the fight. And that's why when anyone says, well, where should I start in your system? I always tell them, hey, start with my ebook on making friends with fear. And if you're so inclined, invest in Our No Fear program. It's a 97-minute program that will change your life. Digital program, self-learning, self-guided. You can listen to it over and over again. It's all my slides as if you were in a live program with me explaining and telling stories about that.
You know, the ironic thing to that, Tony, I mean, I keep telling you, I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I've gone through the No Fear materials twice now, and definitely picked up pieces of it. Some of the stuff really left a mark here, but it honestly wasn't until our conversation this evening before I really got my head wrapped around the elegance of the system. And
it's excellent.
So I think your comment about people being able to watch it over and over again, go through it several times, is well worth it. Because again, I'm not the stupidest guy in the world, but I'm not the smartest guy either. And third time was a charm for me.
If I tell somebody you need to listen to this as many times as you need to listen to it and then listen to it again, if that insults you, there's certain movies I've watched over and over again. Every time I watch Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, I'm reminded of the kid that was so inspired by Bruce Lee's story that he created the simplest and simultaneously most complex self-defense system to learn. Complex only because people can't believe it's this simple. You're already a human weapon. Your body already has survival reflexes that are faster than any cognitive skill, any thinking skill. Startle flinch, weaponize the startle flinch and you're safer. Weaponize fear and you're safer. And people are like, well, what else is there? That's it. I don't know somebody's past trauma, their PTSD. I don't know somebody's erroneous beliefs. If I tell you that I can teach you how to defend yourself in one day in our Be Your Own Bodyguard course, most of your listeners are going to go, well, that's bullshit. Look at me, I'm out of shape, or I've never been in a fight. Immediately, they're in the fear loop, not realizing that it's their psychological fear that's preventing them from absorbing and integrating the information.
I've got some thoughts on this. I'll probably edit this little section out. Then again, I might not. Have you ever watched a TV show? I know you have, so it's kind of rhetorical, but if you watched an episode of a TV show or a movie and it starts with the ending, and then you're sitting there, so JR got shot and killed, for example, dating myself clearly, back to the late 70s, early 80s with the TV show Dallas. So we know JR's been shot, but what we don't know is what led up to him being shot. How on earth could this have possibly happened, right? It's not an uncommon thing to do in the entertainment industry. My gut feeling right now is that what we do is we start this video with a really easy to understand graphic and say, look, this is how simple this really is. Right. But you got to watch the rest of the video to realize how we got to such a simple ending. I only do a handful of things really good, and one of them is doing pitch decks for presentations. Yeah. And in this particular case, I think I can put together a flow chart that speaks to my brain, which may then in turn play to somebody else's. But again, I want to start with the conclusion. Then they can watch the rest of the video to figure out how the heck we got to the conclusion.
I dig it.
Become a Survival Dispatch Insider. We bring together survival enthusiasts and preppers to share knowledge and skills, which means you can enhance your preparedness for emergencies and ensure the safety of your community. The results you'll get: improve your emergency preparedness by learning skills and strategies from experienced preppers. Build lasting connections with like-minded individuals to share your passion for safety and readiness. Access a wealth of knowledge and resources to assist you in protecting you and your community in certain situations. Go to survivaldispatch.com to get started.